as promised, here we are today with the former mayor, Richard Thomas. Mayor, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you to speak, for speaking with the people of Mount Vernon and to tell us how is your race is going and the situation in Mount Vernon, and why should the people of Mount Vernon give you another chance to run the great city of Mount Vernon.
Well, I just first got to thank Johnny's Pizzeria for hosting us today and allowing us to be in their sacred place. Johnny's Pizzeria is one of the most famous institutions in Mount Vernon. I mean, the history here is just tremendous. And when I think about the family that has created this institution, the Episcopal family, I think about all the Mount Vernon families that have come here to enjoy life, most important moments, from baseball games to bar mitzvahs to weddings to just having a bite to eat with a friend. And I'm talking about Johnny's because these are the people in Mount Vernon that have asked me to step up and run. Business owners, families, all throughout the city have spoken with me over the past several years saying, Rich, we need you back. We got to get Mount Vernon going in the right direction again. We have to get back to the future. And that's one of the things why I'm running. I'm running because I want to bring Mount Vernon back to the future. A lot of things that we were doing when I was in office was forward thinking. And it was positioning the city to accomplish not just its goals, but to change the system here so that Mount Vernon performs better for the people.
Mayor, first of all, let me do my justification, excuse, apology. If you see me that I'm typing, you know how this goes. There is people talking, there is people asking me to ask this question or that question. Sure. So it's not a show of disrespect.
Right.
It's just that I'm multitasking.
Right.
How is Mount Vernon today, sir?
Mount Vernon today is worse off than 6 years ago when I was in office. And I can tell you unequivocally, categorically, empirically, from violence to taxes to quality of life, everything has just fallen apart. And it's not a mistake. In my view, it's a deliberate set of decisions that were made by City Hall that totally worked against the people. And that's something that I know we can correct, we can change it, and we can bring Mount Vernon back to where it used to be. A city that not only shined, but a city that thrived. And that's one of the things that I can tell you, my plans to turn around Mount Vernon they're ready to go.
Yesterday we interviewed another candidate, and there is some questions that are going to be basically the same, because people are comparing candidates in order to decide who should I vote for. What are the differences between those who want to lead the city? Why should I vote for A and not for B or not for C? So what are the root changes between you and those that are opposing you? I'm talking about candidates or the current mayor.
Well, look, when I started as mayor, Mount Vernon was in a terrible place. Over 90% of the streetlights were out. We know the potholes were literally out of control. And we didn't have control of our finances. Now, if anybody that runs a business, or if you run your home, you have to make sure you have control of your finances so you can have a good shot at life. So my approach remains the same. I'm going to get better control of Mount Vernon's finances overall, because right now you can see the games, you can see the finger pointing, you can see the delay tactics on audits, you can see the delay tactics on refinancing and restructuring the city. These are things that should have happened years ago, things that I started to do, but I was met with extreme opposition, obstruction by people that did not want the gravy train to stop rolling their way. So I'm coming back to derail the gravy train again and to make sure that the people of Mount Vernon get a seat at the table so they can enjoy their slice of the American dream.
When we talk about gravy train, there must be a reason why there is a gravy train.
Yeah.
What do you think was happening? Why do you think they blocked you from accomplishing many things that would better the city of Mount Vernon and the residents of Mount Vernon? Were they benefiting from and what were the benefits?
It's unclear what the benefits are to the people. I know there were no benefits to the people.
Not to the people.
But what I can describe, and I can just put squarely, is there was an audit done by the state of New York that found $178 million was mishandled by the former controllers. 2 controllers that I took on to try and get Mount Vernon to be more transparent and more fiscally responsible. I was met with opposition by the city council, and they found it, their purpose to obstruct anything and everything that would make Mount Vernon better. So my time in office is battle-proven, battle-tested, and the people that held us back, for the most part, I think they realize now that it makes more sense to work for the people of Mount Vernon. And I look forward to working with everyone so we can bring Mount Vernon back to the future, back to a place where we fix our broken sewers, we make the city safe, we make it fun and function. And as I mentioned, we're here in Johnny's Pizzeria. They applied for a permit when this administration came into office. All right, you can set aside COVID for a few months, but construction was an essential service, so those permits were supposed to be processed. Did you know that they still don't have their permit? They still don't have a permit to operate the front part of their restaurant. And this is one of the most famous institutions in America. It's mind-boggling that this administration could break not just the police department, but stop our economy from having hammers hit nails and people invest in their homes.
And Mayor, we can multiply the situation with Johnny's Pizzeria by tens, hundreds of other people that are also waiting.
Correct.
For those permits. I hear that the building department is a complete failure. How would you say it? How would you rank it?
And this is where and why people have a very clear choice. They have the people's choice. You have a choice between someone that's going to break all their promises and someone that's going to deliver results. When you look back at the building department, when I was in office, you were able to get your permit in 8 days or less, and if you didn't get it on the 8th day, you had an opportunity to do a self-certification process, so you could just move along with your work without losing your contractors, without having carrying costs, without having all the problems. But the reality is, government in Mount Vernon must get out the way. It's the toxic politics of Mount Vernon that I was taking out of the system. And just one final point, I did it with the Charter Revision Commission. When I established that, I fought very hard with the people to get it on the ballot. It got on, it was voted on by over 90% of the voters in Mount Vernon. And this administration has deliberately chosen to not follow the law and not restart the Charter Revision Commission again to rewrite the city's constitution so we can take politics out of the system as much as possible. It doesn't have to be pure politics, and that's what Mount Vernon's problem is. It's all politics, and that's the problem. So as mayor, you can look at the decisions I made were the most right decisions for the people, and the decision that I made was to change the Constitution for the first time since Mount Vernon was founded in 1892, so that we can take power away from the mayor, take power away from the council, take power away from the controller, and make the public officials work for the public again.
Now, Mayor, those folks that blocked you when you were the mayor, are going to, chances are they are going to be there again. Some yes, some not, but the institution, and sometimes even though they might not be there, but the strings behind them still exist. How do you plan to move away and make a change now if the players might continue to be the same?
You know, interest, and this is one of the things I learned in my time serving from the governor's office all the way through to mayor. Interest. I believe that when people look at the vision that I have to activate a multi-billion-dollar plan for Mount Vernon's redevelopment, that includes the people of Mount Vernon, that starts with businesses like Johnny's Pizzeria, or Westside Party Rental, or the Ice Cream Factory on Sanford Boulevard. It starts with businesses here that are very successful, and we want to make them more successful. And we could bring a multi-billion-dollar entertainment, sports, travel industry to Mount Vernon, and every boat can rise. I believe that those forces that are out there, they're going to stay out there. They're going to have haters. Who cares? But there are other forces out there that are going to say, you know what? Let's take a look at what we can do. Because you know what? We have to evolve. We can't stay the same. And look at Bed Bath & Beyond, for example. It's gone. What is filling that space? What's filling that void of sales tax revenue? This administration has no game plan to activate the economy. No thought about how to create jobs for regular people. And those are the things that are my priorities. I know how to do it. I did it before, and I brought in a bunch of businesses to stabilize the economy, to put pressure on property taxes, to push them down. And when we get back in office together, you'll see those forces that held me back, I think they're going to join me.
Hope so. Now, Mayor, I interviewed you many times in the past, during your administration, after your administration, and I remember when you were mayor, the work that you did, trying to bring new investors to the city of Mount Vernon. But the question is, yes, we are going to bring new investors, but what about those small businesses that exist in the city of Mount Vernon?
Yeah.
What are your plans to retain them? Because look, everything is getting more expensive. Those big businesses are eating the small businesses, which makes it difficult for a small business to continue. What are you doing, or what will your plan be to retain those businesses?
So first, you got to make the city safe. You can't have a business, you can't even have a home, you can't have a community without safety. So first, we have to invest in our police department. We have to give our officers all the tools, including a contract, so that they can perform at their highest level, but also feel safe when they're doing their job. I will back that up by expanding the school resource officer program again, putting it back into the schools. I know that the Board of Education asked the County of Westchester to help, which is a desperate move on their part, but I acknowledge the reality that they're facing. But we would add more to that so that people, the kids, and the city can be safe first. The second part is the businesses will know that they have a place where their employees will be safe. They can come to work and not be harassed, robbed, attacked, you name it. That's a foundation that must be solidified. Afterwards, I'll work on a program. I had a program before called the Ground Floor Tax Credit Program, so that we reduce the ground floor taxes on the storefronts that are empty to incentivize businesses to fill those blank spaces with activity. And it doesn't have to be the high tech. It could be something for the arts. It could be something for culture. It doesn't always have to be, some, Fortune 100 corporation. As long as we get businesses that want to grow, that want to succeed, we want to support them, nurture them, create the ecosystem so they can support each other. And I'll give you one quick example of a system that I put in place that's still working, and it wants to grow, but this administration has not allowed it to grow. Catering halls. Catering halls did not exist in Mount Vernon before I became mayor. That was one of the things that I thought would help the community expand and grow the local economy. This is where the bakery can now deliver cupcakes and cakes to birthday parties. Families can have a space other than, going to some place outside of Mount Vernon to celebrate their milestone events. Or there are other types of things that can happen at the catering hall, be it a funeral, if you unfortunately have to go through that part of life, which we've had too many young people die under this administration. So I can tell you that if you look at the catering halls and you look at the growth of businesses, there's one on Sanford Boulevard and 5th that was operating out of the trunk of their car, but they came to every street festival we had. They grew interest, they grew their demand. And over a couple of years, they had enough capital to invest in a storefront that was empty. But that storefront does not have the tax incentive that I would have given it. So just imagine how much more quickly that cupcake shop could have come to life if it had the support that it really needed along the way. And that's the key thing I would do, just to start focusing on the local small businesses. But there's a global appeal for Mount Vernon.
Now, Mayor, the majority of the people in any municipality, unless you talk about rich areas, people that understand finances back and in and out, but the majority of people don't understand the complexity of formulas. Personally, I don't. I don't understand how much or why, and the school system gets this or gets that. but I do understand quality of life. Okay, and the majority of the people that actually votes anyone to position are not that minority that understand all these financial complexities. Are people that have a day-to-day life, simple people that they understand quality of life. Is garbage picked up? Do I feel safe? Can I send my kid to the deli store after 6 o'clock and he comes back home? Okay, those are the things that the majority of people understand.
Yep.
Okay, what will you do to connect to those people so they can say, you know, Mayor Thomas has a valid point. Mayor Thomas deserves another chance.
You know, I'm going to reopen City Hall back to the people. And when you look at my time in office, I spent a lot of time in the streets with the people, especially our young people, to make sure that they knew that they were heard, they were seen, they were respected and protected. From a quality of life standpoint, we have to engage the community again. We have to get back to, you know, the street festivals. We have to get back to the entertainment events. We have to bring back great ideas like the Grand Prix that Ernie Davis, you know, brought to Mount Vernon. We have to bring back the Parade of Flags. We have to
Arts on Third.
We have to do these things year round, not just wait till it's political season. Year round, without the politics. Make it about the people, make it about business. This way, families could know, oh, and another Saturday from now, we can go down to the Circle and have a great experience at the Pumpkin Fest. We can go to, over by right on Sanford Boulevard, the restaurant that beat Bobby Flay. We can go over there for a great Labor Day celebration after the Caribbean Parade. Like, just think about it. We have so much culture here, so many great people that we can celebrate every neighborhood differently and bring that positive energy to life. So the quality of life will not only come back from that standpoint, but remember, Slide the City. I brought it around the city every week in the summertime for kids that did not have access to a pool. So we were doing every little thing we could find that didn't cost that much money. It cost, what, a couple $100 for the water and a couple $1,000 for the personnel? Big deal. That's something that you're supposed to do to invest in the future of families in Mount Vernon. And I look forward to doing it again, but even on a bigger scale.
Now, Mayor, thinking that everything, you know, that your campaign will run a smooth campaign, is like we're going to be kidding ourselves. You're going to have a group that will object, but that's life. They will throw things at you. Is anything that about the past that you want to bring it up, that will make people feel at ease that you are the right person for this job?
You know, I think the truth, lies are more entertaining than the truth. And the truth takes time for it to come out. And when we started this interview, I talked about the $178 million that was mishandled. And there's, you know, information out there that suggests $25 million is just totally missing. There's
still missing?
From what from the information I received last, it's out there. They don't know how to account for it. I do know that there are some serious financial problems in Mount Vernon, but we can turn those financial problems into real solutions. And if you look at what I was dealt, the cards I had to play as mayor, I was dealt a bad hand. But even with the bad hand, we were able to overcome extreme opposition, extreme obstacles, and we put the past behind us. We let go of Mount Vernon's, you know, all the problems it had and focused on a very promising future. And you can look at the numbers to see it. In 2019, nobody died by a gun in Mount Vernon. That never happened in Mount Vernon's history. Why did that happen? Even though I didn't have access to funding, even though they defunded the police department, even though they defunded DPW, they stopped everything. We were still able to work with the people to make Mount Vernon safe and have a strong quality of life. So I know that the distractions that were created were to get control of Mount Vernon's destiny by political forces that want to keep Mount Vernon trapped in the center of a donut hole. They want us to stay in the center watching Yonkers, White Plains, New Rochelle, Pelham. They want us to watch everybody develop, but keep us in an oppressed state. So when I went to change the system, I went up against extreme opposition because the system, as we all know, it works against us more times than often. I can tell you that the systems that I'm going to put in place, because the law is behind us, the people are behind us, the people put it in place with the charter revision, we're going to bring back major operations to the city's governance. We're going to bring back the housing authority. In White Plains, the White Plains Housing Authority has $2 billion in development to build housing for people that need it, especially our seniors. Mount Vernon does not have a housing authority. We lost it because of corruption. That hurt Mount Vernon from a generational standpoint. We're going to bring back the parking authority. Why? We need to build parking garages throughout the entire city, especially over in the plazas. We need to build parking strategically, smartly, and with green infrastructure on top to create more green spaces throughout the city. It not only creates revenue, but it creates quality of life. It creates an opportunity for customers to come back to 4th Avenue. And when I say 4th Avenue, people remember it as a destination for fashion, for trendy things, not for, thrift shops and dollar stores. And that's, again, what it has become because it has been trapped in the center of this donut hole. I'm going to get us out of this donut hole. We're going to make this pit our platform to build Mount Vernon back up. And we need someone that's going to fight against people that are going to hold us down. And just think about it. These are the same people that are saying, oh, Rich Thomas, you did this, you did that. But guess what? They have nothing to say about $200 million of your tax dollars being mishandled. They have nothing to say about illegal dumping at Memorial Field. They have nothing to say about the sewers backing up into families' homes. You know what I said? I said, screw it. I'm going to fix it. And I'm going to fight them for you, the people. And if I have to fight them again, I will. But I don't think it's necessary. What I think is necessary is that we refocus on the city's future. What are we going to do to activate that multi-billion-dollar plan for Mount Vernon's growth? A growth that includes the people, that starts with businesses like Johnny's Pizzeria. What are we going to do to get that going? Because if you look carefully and listen to the other candidates, they have no concept of the things I'm talking about. They're going to copy everything I say, but they don't know. They're talking about small goals. I'm talking about systems change, and that's what really needs to change in Mount Vernon.
Since you mentioned Memorial Field,
Yeah.
okay, and you were very much involved in Memorial Field. Memorial Field now is completed, so they say. Okay.
Yep.
What is your vision? What is your assessment of Memorial Field as it stands right now?
I believe Memorial Field can still be expanded. And I think the deal that this administration brokered with the county does not service the people of Mount Vernon as well as it should. The people are locked out, they're shut out, and they're rightfully upset. I warned against this, and that was one of the fights. Richard Thomas wouldn't do this and wouldn't agree to that. That's right. I would not sell the people out the way this administration has sold out Mount Vernon. I just won't do it. What I can tell you is, with the right partners and the right people, we can start with people from Mount Vernon and people out there Googling. Sean P. Diddy Combs had an interest in working with my administration to bring the New York City Football Club to Memorial Field. Soccer, with a 25,000 seat stadium and an enclosed dome. The dome idea came from Mayor Dinkins, who was advising me at the time. God rest his soul. So what I can tell you is, I listened to Mayor Dinkins when he said, when I went out there and I did, the tennis facility out in Queens, and I brought the U.S. Open, the biggest mistake I made, Mayor, was I didn't put a dome on it. Mayor Dinkins said, go big, it's going to make the most sense, it's going to generate the most revenue, get it done. And so if you think about it and you do the math, you know what, there's no reason why Diddy cannot bring Revolt to have its own stadium to compete with the Barclays Center in Brooklyn with Jay-Z. Why not? We're the home of Diddy, Dick Clark, who created Rockin' New Year's Eve, the biggest party on the planet. We're the home of Nina Simone, Sidney Poitier. We're the home of the Shabazz family. We're the home of Heavy D. So many icons in culture and even comedy, J.B. Smoove. Think about it. Why not have Memorial Field have a long-term vision? We could stick with the one right now, but let's plan for a bigger expansion so we could bring billions of dollars to Mount Vernon and add the transportation network and expand it to have a ferry go from behind Target in Mount Vernon to LaGuardia Airport, or to go to City Island in 15 minutes with no wait. That parking garage would fill up so fast with people taking a boat from Mount Vernon to go to City Island or LaGuardia, or heck, to the US Open, which gets 70,000 people to show up a week. We can make that happen in Mount Vernon. There's so many things, even with the World Cup coming, there's so many things we can do to build upon Memorial Field. It doesn't have to stay where it is. It can stay there for now, but there needs to be a transition to a bigger vision. And that's part of the vision that I'm talking about.
So my follow-up question would be, is it too late to
Absolutely
change
not.
path? But for what you just said, it's not.
Absolutely not. I mean, look, look, the New York City Football Club, they're working in Queens now. They hooked up with the Mets owner, Cohen, and they have billions of dollars fighting right now to get the approvals in New York City. But if something falls apart there, which I highly doubt it will, but if something were to fall apart there, I would immediately work with them to make sure that they bring that activity to Mount Vernon, and they won't have to fight that hard. And it won't cost them as much as it's going to cost them in New York City. But I just know that there are other football clubs out there, soccer meaning, that will be very interested in having a presence in a state-of-the-art facility that is bigger than the Barclays and more versatile than the Barclays, better than Madison Square Garden, so that we can have marquee events right here in Mount Vernon and service the entire region.
Now, a few years back, when we had a sit down, we spoke about infrastructure and things that were important. I was at the opening of construction in one of the bridges here in Mount Vernon, I believe at 14th Street. Yesterday on our interview, the former mayor gave you credit for that. He said credit is due when it's due. And this was work of the mayor, Richard Thomas.
Yep.
Are you happy with the other constructions? Because it seems like at least people are saying that the current mayor is taking credit for other people's work. Do you feel the same? Is there anything you want to say on the subject?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's clear that this administration has a plagiarism problem. You know, all they want to do is just say everything that Richard Thomas did that was great, they did it, forget about it. And all the problems that they created, they want to try and blame me, like the animal shelter. They try to blame me on that. But meanwhile, that's another subject. But with respect to bridges, that was part of the plan going back to 2016. So I thank Councilman Wallace for his accolade, and I look forward to thanking him in person when I see him. But I can tell you that there's so many more opportunities. Even with his expertise, he could contribute to the vision of helping build up the center of the city. Covering the railroad cut is not far-fetched. That's another multi-billion-dollar plan that can build up Mount Vernon, unite the city, and bring a whole different energy to our downtown and electrify our future. But I know that the bridges are just the beginning. And you can look at the amount of bridges this administration closed. They closed the bridge on Fulton and 3rd Street, 2 of them. And because they didn't do maintenance, they weren't paying attention to the details. So as mayor, you have to pay attention to the details and the big picture without losing sight of both. And that's one of my specialties. I was able to deal with all of the attacks, all the nonsense, all the distractions, but still make lemonade out of all the lemons that were thrown our way. And that's what you need out of a mayor. You need a mayor that's going to make a difference in people's life, positive. And getting the bridges that she closed reopen again would be a major priority of mine, because it's not a monetary problem, it's a priority problem. This administration has more money than you can shake a stick at, and they still raise taxes, they created new fees, they shut down the senior center, they shut down the animal shelter, they shut down the bridges. I mean, what are they doing? And when you really step back and ask the critical question, what are they doing with your money, then you realize it's not about you, it's about them. And that's why they fight me, because I'm for you, not them.
Now, Mayor, do you feel like there is a nepotism problem in Mount Vernon now, or things are just fine?
Look, the performance of the city is not where it should be, And, you know, you could call it nepotism, you could call it mismanagement, you can call it just the person in office, the group that's in office right now. They don't care enough about the people, and they don't care enough about solving problems. They care about the politics, they care about the social media, and they care about, you know, the fake news. That's what they care about. I care about the reality. I care about making a difference in people's lives, and there's nobody that can take that away. As I already said, in 2019, nobody died by a gun in Mount Vernon. That never happened. And it did not happen because we had a strong, respected police department that protected the people, that went out of their way to build a relationship on both sides of the badge. We had our problem solved. But guess what? This administration dismantled the police department, totally destroyed it. And while they may try to take credit for, oh, we got the fire trucks and we got the garbage trucks, remember the fight I had to go through to get the money allocated to procure that equipment. And I just want to point out one thing. Now, this might be a little into the weeds, but I want everybody to just walk slowly and drink some ice water with me for 1 second. This administration bought much of that equipment at its face value price. Leasing that equipment would have been a far better decision, because leasing the equipment would have been less money for the city to put out up front, and we could have used the savings from having to buy millions of dollars worth of equipment with a couple $100,000 a year, and after 7 or 8 years, we buy that same equipment for $1. And the maintenance is somewhat shared by the manufacturer. So the decision that they made to spend boatloads of money for equipment that we needed is another distinction between, you know, us. And they essentially find ways to waste money, waste opportunities, and that's not how I work. So I can demonstrate, pure math, that the decisions they made have set us back financially. We didn't have to have that sustainability tax. We didn't have to raise taxes. She did not have to hire 555 people. To do what? What are they doing? Because nothing is really happening in the streets. It's like, you know, you see all these people walking around, but the garbage is still on the floor. The sidewalk is still, you know, not level. The potholes are still there. They're getting worse. The street lights, not the traffic lights, are still ancient. What has been upgraded other than the ego of people inside City Hall? I don't know.
Mayor, a few months ago, I was at the Mount Vernon Animal Shelter. So were you. And we saw the people that were rallying there. We saw people coming in with the animals to drop off, were turned back. Mayor said that there was no other alternative but shutting down the shelter due to the conditions that the animals were living in. She blamed prior administration. You are part of that prior administration.
Yeah.
She now received about $1 million grant to redo, refix, restore the new shelter. But the finger we're pointing back. It's not us, it's not my fault, it's the prior administration. Do you accept part of that blame?
Absolutely not. And let's just look at the facts. The state of New York did an inspection of the Mount Vernon Animal Shelter, and they do annual inspections, and sometimes bi-monthly. But in June of 2022, the state of New York came to this current administration and said, hey, you have a rodent infestation at the animal shelter, you need to hire an exterminator, it's $2,000, problem solved. The current administration ignored a rodent infestation at the animal shelter. And fast forward, that's not, you know, years, that's months. Within months, sewer rats destroyed an institution that served Mount Vernon for 5 decades. And that was a decision that this administration made. They decided to ignore the most innocent of life beings, rescue animals. And that behavior is indicative of how and why They shut the senior center without a backup plan. How and why they allowed the bridges on Fulton and 3rd Street to shut down without a plan to have them either maintained or fixed. So the animal shelter getting money from the state, it just shows me that it's a good signal that the people of Mount Vernon were heard by the state, but it's another signal that, you know, the politics here care about just the politics and not the people. And that's another point that we need to just remind everybody. These politicians work for you. And while you may feel powerless in between elections, well, feel your power now. Let them know that you want a better future, you want to right the future, you want to go the right way, you want an animal shelter that's open and accessible and supports, you know, all families in Mount Vernon, not just the political ones. And I can tell you that the inspection reports tell the story. It was not me, it was her. And it was her decision to allow rats to overrun the shelter. And the fact that there's money for it, it's because of the work that I did with the Thomas Tours, putting pressure on City Hall and the state to step up and reinvest in a critical institution for the people of Mount Vernon.
Do you think
and I thank the people out there for helping.
And do you think that this money came about now has anything to do with the elections that are just coming up? Politically designed? What do you think?
It doesn't matter. What matters,
doesn't matter, but what is it? You know, the optical illusion.
Yeah, look, the optics are the optics, but what I can tell you is that Albany is still in session right now, and I hope that more money comes to Mount Vernon other than political points. I hope that real money comes to help the people of Mount Vernon, to invest in our infrastructure and to build us up and not hold us down and keep us trapped in this donut hole. But regardless of what they do, we have what we need to get it done by working with the people that are here. And we can turn it around if we just write the future.
Well, maybe, I don't know if you saw yesterday's interview, but the questions that I'm posing to you are basically the same. Okay. And the reason I'm doing that is because people want to do a comparison. Mm-hmm. You know, where does this candidate stands on this, where that candidate stands on that. That's the whole point of similar questions. Now let's talk about Mount Vernon Hospital.
Sure.
Okay. Mount Vernon Hospital almost shut down. It was saved, I think, because of the COVID. COVID happened, they couldn't close down because the pandemic was just blowing, but I could be wrong because the way I see things might not be the same way you and other people who are involved in the situation see it. Mm-hmm. How do you see it?
You know, look, I see it as this administration fumbled the football on the 1-yard line in the first quarter. They had an amazing opportunity to help expand Mount Vernon Hospital in Mount Vernon, but they chose to play politics with their building permit. What do I mean by that? On Sanford Boulevard, behind Stop and Shop, is a building that used to be the post office. And that building was supposed to house Montefiore Hospital System Research Facility. They were moving right along. They were getting their work done. The moment I left office, they started experiencing problems with the building department. Fast forward to 2020, when this administration took over, more problems with the building department. After a while, you know, you're a multi-billion-dollar agency. You don't need to have, you know, a community or a building department stop a multi-billion-dollar jobs-creating project. But that's what they did. This administration, and you know, the brief one that came after me, pushed them out. That's a fact. That space is now empty. It's done. They're trying to lease it up. They don't know what to do with it. But Montefiore had every intention to expand in Mount Vernon when I was in office. And I left behind a great system so that they could flourish. You're talking about 1,000 people going to Sanford Boulevard to work. That means they're going to buy balloons, they're going to go to CVS, they're going to go buy food, they're going to do things in the area. But those 1,000 employees are no longer an option. So the hospital has been suffocated by an administration that doesn't have a vision for what it's going to do to activate and grow the economy. And this is part of the reason why, when it comes to health, advances in healthcare, we have to bring the stakeholders together and craft a new plan and a new vision with Montefiore so they can maintain health services. We can have the same level of support that we have, but I think we can expand it. There's no reason why we cannot have a trauma center in Mount Vernon. Why do we always have to go to the Bronx for a trauma situation? The equipment is not that different. It just has to be brought to the Mount Vernon Hospital. So these are points that I not only advocated for before it was popular, but I advocated for it after tragedy struck. When Drew Faustin was hit by a car and we had to transport this young man to the hospital far away, where he died. And when I was fighting the city council at the time to get speed bumps put in around every single school and speed tables at popular intersections to slow down cars, the city council, the controller, and all these politicians that want to talk said, oh, we can't do that, we can't do that. And guess what? They did not do that. And more people got hurt. A young person lost their life. And look at all the millions of dollars that came in with COVID, and still no trauma center at the Mount Vernon Hospital. Still no respectable contract for the nurses. Still no expanded activity on Sanford Boulevard with Montefiore. Why? Because these politicians that come into office, they don't come in with the right priorities. They come in with the politics. And I'm not about that. I'm about the people, and that's not going to change. And I look forward to making sure that Montefiore Hospital revisits its expansion plans under the Thomas administration.
Now, Mayor, Black Westchester Magazine just put out an article that accuses the current mayor of falsehoods or creating optical illusions to make it look like endorsements that never happened. The current president of the PBA, Nicholas Giorgio, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, says that he has not endorsed and is not thinking about endorsing the current mayor. What is your opinion on that?
You know, it's a fact, right? And this is not an opinion, this is a fact. The current administration, the current mayor, lied, plain and simple. Lied about the animal shelter, lied about this latest issue with the police. She lied. The numbers are not true, what she's putting out. 4 teenagers died over the past year. I represent 3 of the families because they came to me because of their experience with this administration and their frustration of trying to get the police department to work with them in certain areas or even the schools. So speaking on behalf of these families, it is very, very, very disheartening to see the mayor lie about safety and lie about the police and lie about these families that have been victimized because of her decisions that destroyed the police department, that made families not safe in Mount Vernon. So as a father, that I'm concerned about my son. My son is 10, Zaire Fernandez, who's going to reach his 15th birthday heavenly on the 18th of June. He was 14. So between the ages of 10 and 14, the past 4 years, think about it. You went from slide to city and safety in the city, nobody died by a gun in 2019, to a 14-year-old being killed. Her lie literally lost lives. And she needs to apologize to the families that have lost loved ones, and she needs to apologize to the police and the people of Mount Vernon now. This nonsense with the mailer needs to be handled. And it needs to be handled equitably, forcefully. Because if I did something like that, they'd be like, yo, send the paddy wagon. But you know what? I stand in truth. And that's why I'm still here. And that's why people are going to write me in from there.
Well, guys, we have to conclude sooner or later. I'm sure that we could go for the rest of the day, talk about issues and things that should have been done differently. But we have to come to an end. But before we do so, I want to make sure that you guys understand that Yonkers Voice does not endorse or oppose any candidate. Our job is very simple. We are focused on bringing information to you, people who are watching us, so you can make an educated and informed decision on who deserves your vote. all candidates, including the mayor, showing person, has been invited to a sit down. Actually, she was invited long before Mayor Thomas, long before Andrew Wallace, but she has not accepted it yet. Anytime she's ready, she's welcome to sit down and tell us what's true, what is not true, whatever she needs to say to the people of Mount Vernon. So you are welcome if you decide to come on. So any candidate is welcome on Yonkers Voice. Mayor, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do a closing. Look at the people and tell them why. Even though the whole interview...
Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you, Rue, and thank you, everybody out there watching. I ask that you share this video. I ask that you revisit the vision and plan that I have to make Mount Vernon safe, fun, and function again. A place that's going to welcome families and protect families. A place that's going to give you a shot at having a bright future. And that's what I intend to do as your next mayor again. Get back to the future. Because right now we're stuck in the middle of this donut hole watching everybody develop. We're watching everybody succeed. And we can have that success here. We got to get the politics out the way. We will. The Charter Revision Commission will make that happen. But you know why I know it's going to happen? It's because you, the people. You're going to write the future by writing in Richard Thomas for mayor. You're going to stamp out the establishment and stamp in Richard Thomas. And we have stamps available for you to stamp me on the ballot on this June 17th or as early or during the election on June 27th. So you can call the phone number. It's 914-297-8789. The phone number is 914-297-8789. You can call that, leave a message. We'll get you a stamp to stamp us in, to stamp them out. And just know that I have not changed. I may have evolved in a sense, but I've learned a lot. I've been through a lot. There are mistakes that I've made in the past. I'm never going to make those same mistakes, but I can tell you unequivocally that my heart is still in Mount Vernon. I'm still here because I believe that Mount Vernon can be better than what it is right now. I know it could be better because it was better. And together we'll make it better. So thank you again for this time, and I hope to receive your support as we go forward in this primary. But regardless, I'll be on the ballot in November. That's a guarantee.
What is this?
This is how you can write me in for mayor. It's a location where underneath the first column, second row, second box, you write in Richard Thomas or you stamp me in. So one way or the other, we'll be there in the primary to take back Mount Vernon. And I just encourage everybody to know that write-in victories are very possible. The mayor of Buffalo did it. Keyword, mayor of Buffalo. Think about it. He did it. A judge in upstate New York and a kid out in Long Island. So this is not that far-fetched. There are thousands of people out there, especially people that have suffered at the hands of the lies of this administration, that want to exercise their right to vote. The people's choice is here. You can write me in on June 27th or on the 17th when you vote early.
Guys, but don't forget, none of that happened unless you come out and vote. If you want change, you need to come out and vote. Talking on social media is good, especially if it's on Yonkers Voice.
Yep.
But going out and vote and cast your vote is what makes the change happen.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And until next time.